Warning, the following vidcast may consist of excessive alcohol consumption, lewd and indecent acts, explicit language, and guaranteed extreme noise pollution. Viewer discretion is advised.
I know what things are called in this game, I swear.
And it's kind of like you've discovered this little shiny thing stuck under a pile of poo somewhere.
I'm Cajun, you're lucky I can read.
Oh, you had to bring learning into this.
I'll take my turn extension.
Well, welcome everybody to the first episode of Advanced Maneuvers Turn Extension. We're going to go ahead, we're going to do some introductions. First of all, my name is Gaston, I'm currently playing Minions.
And this is Pokey, and I'm currently playing Skorne, but I also play Khador and sometimes Protectorate when I want to feel dirty.
This is Dowdark. I currently play Trolls and Question Mark.
This is Iron Lich W, and my primary faction is Cryx, but I also dabble in Blind Water.
This is Solus. I'm currently playing Convergence, but my main faction is sort of Legion. I'm like the generalist of the group, as I've played a little bit of everything over the years.
The general of the group, you got that right. Generalist,
there's an ist at the end of that.
However you use it to adjust your ADD.
Yeah, you know, it's always the new shiny stuff that I want to play, and yeah, I think that's how I ended up with Convergence, because they're shiny.
This is Fortinby. I'm currently playing Cygnar, but I also play Circle and Skorne.
This is War Machinist 2012, and I'm currently playing Trollbloods and Menoth, and I have a top secret Cryx faction on the way at some point.
So, not joining us tonight, unfortunately, Polar Bear Cub, who is our Convergence and Cygnar player. A little bit background on what we're trying to do here, what we're trying to accomplish. The concept behind this actually came out of a lot of the user comments that we were getting on our videos. We do actually read and respond to those, where people were hoping and looking for a little bit more in-depth discussion, a little bit more in-depth view on why we built the lists the way we built them. What our thoughts were while we were playing the games, what decisions we made, what matchups we were looking for. A little bit more detail also in the post-game on where we went wrong, where we could have done things better, and how to overall improve our games and what our reactions were to them. This is actually a very exciting time for our very first episode. We've recently started our own Advanced Maneuvers Steamroller, where we're doing 3 rounds for the 8 people, the 8 members. And so each month between March, April, and May is going to be 1 round. And so we've just wrapped up our first round, and so we're going to get a chance to talk about these games and the players in them. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn it over to Solus to present his view on the Convergence versus Legion game.
So, first round, I ended up having to play against Polar Bear Cub, who's playing Convergence. I think his 2 lists were Axis Tier 4 and Lucant. Since he was playing against Legion, I figured he was going to drop Lucant, so I went with Abby 2. Since my Lilith 2 list, I've played against Lucant before with that, and it goes poorly most of the time. So it ended up being Abby 2 versus Lucant.
What was your Abby 2 list?
So my Abby 2 list is Abby 2, 2 Scythians, and a Seraph, a Naga, a Rake, 3 units of Blight Wasps, and 2 Forsaken. I think that's it. It's Tier 1, mainly so that all of my flying stuff gets +2 speed in the first turn, which makes the list really, really fast. I like the synergy with with Abby 2 and the Wasps. And I just had this dream of actually killing a Warcaster or a Warlock with Wasps.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the Blight Wasps and how they fit in the list? Because not only are they adorable, but they are kind of a new addition to the game.
So the tier list makes them really, really fast. They can run like 18 inches in the first turn. They are defense like 12, but they're only armor 11, and they each only have 5 boxes. So they die to blast damage. They're fairly easy to hit. If you get a solid hit on them, they're probably going to die. But I like the synergy with Abby 2 with her feat and her conferred rage ability. So, with everything stacked on, they become like speed 9, mat 10, and POW 13, with the critical poison and the ability to boost. Plus, with the animus of overwhelm and her feat and everything combined, they clear infantry really, really well.
So the game went pretty well for you?
Oh God, no.
What would you say is a tipping point? What went wrong?
I had a plan going into, I think, my second turn of killing his Axiom, and then trying to dominate the zone after killing his objective. That didn't work. I ended up charging a unit of Blight Wasps into his objective to try and kill it after he had feeded, and he used Watcher to start moving his inverter into the zone, which would stop me scoring. So I sort of abandoned my original plan of killing his Axiom and tried to kill the inverter and the Axiom, which under Lucan's feat is just not really feasible. So at the end of my turn, I managed to kill his objective, but his inverter was in the zone and still alive, and his Axiom was not in the zone but was still alive. So his crackback ended up killing all 3 of my heavies, which put me on the extreme back foot and pretty much gutted my hitting power. So it sort of went downhill from there.
At what point in time did you decide to shift your focus from getting rid of the Axiom to the inverter when you had an Axiom that was partially damaged?
As soon as you got into the zone, I screwed up when I charged. I had probably the ability to block off his inverter from actually getting into the zone, which I didn't do. So I probably should have ended up using my wasps to. I think I had a center unit, a unit of wasp that was in the middle of the board that probably could have run and blocked off his inverter before everything else happened. But I got so focused on scoring and killing the objective that I screwed up my my turn sequence.
So one of the things for me is I know that Polar Bear Cup chose LeConte just because of familiarity. His second list was Axis. Just going based on my experiences with like playing Protectorate into Legion, I really like infantry spam against them for some reason. And I mean, obviously you get Abby being able to trigger Conferred Rage much easier against an infantry spam list, but do you think she would have struggled a lot more against something like that, where you have the non-charge feed, and then you have them coming in and hitting you much harder, and then the recursion as well?
Yes and no. It depending on how things fall out. The wasps will pretty much kill a unit of obstructors each between everything else. And if he'd come up far enough to actually feet on my front line, I pretty much back up a little bit and stay out of his range. And if he actually charges me, I can pretty much weather the charges, and my crackback is gonna remove at least one unit of obstructors, if not both units. Because at that point, you know, if I have a Scythian alive, which I will, and probably just I'll actually have both Scythians alive, because my list is so fast that if I can stay out of his charge range, but he can't stay out of mine. So it gets a little interesting trying to figure out spacing and you know, my first couple of turns, or really my first turn. But I think I have a better game against Axis than I do Lucan, at least with my 2 lists. So.
Okay. Well, I know one of the things I liked about your list was a little bit of tech with Fortify and the the invisible dude. What's he called?
Oh, the rake.
I know what things are called in this game. I swear, the rake.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit for us?
So Lucan has no way to mitigate stealth. So my first turn, I ran everything up. I put Fortify on the rake, and then sat everything as close to base as I could. And then I staggered my front line so that he didn't have any drag targets. So even if he'd come up and purified off Fortify, he wouldn't have been able to use drag to get any of my heavies.
So yeah, I thought that was a fun bit of tech that came out of that list. It's something that requires placement on the table, so you don't necessarily get it out of just looking at the list.
And I'm actually I'm going to fiddle with the list a little bit more. I'm not terribly happy with the beast loadout, at least for the pairing, because I have Lilith 2 who can handle infantry fairly well. So Abby 2 really needs to be able to crack armor and multi-wound models. I'm going to fiddle with it a little bit more.
I was just curious with this was the first list that you would run where you would use the wasps in such large number. Do you think 3 is one too many?
I think it depends on what I plan the list to do. If I wanted to deal with infantry, no. If I wanted to try and sort of straddle the line between cracking armor and dealing with infantry, yes. I think at that point I would rather take out a unit of wasps and put in another rake, just as a jammer. So with the rakes, with Fortify and Tenacity, they're like 16, 17s, something like that. They can't be knocked down and can't be moved. So that's actually really helpful. So, and I mean, just the reactions from opponents that I've played against with double rakes, they seem to get really frustrated with them, especially.
Nobody likes double rakes.
Yeah, especially if you have no way to mitigate stealth.
So, out of curiosity, I'm not very familiar with the beast packs. Are they a unit too?
Yes. Yeah, they're a unit. They take orders to charge and run, so you don't have to force them to do that. And yeah, pretty much you just use them as you would a unit, with the ability to put Fury on them to boost and cast Animi.
So what about running them with the little wasp guys with Callus?
Why? I
Dark
mean,
guidance,
besides
feet.
Dark Guidance, well, the feat doesn't work on them because feat actually says it has to be a warrior model. So they are troopers, but they are not warrior models. They are still beasts.
This is worth a try.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of Dark Guidance on them. I've got a couple of lists with Callus that I want to try at some point. Once I've gotten a couple of more games in with Convergence. We've got the East Coast Rumble coming up, and I'm trying to convince myself to take Convergence to that. So I need the practice time with the faction. So, but I'm not done with Legion. I think I found at least my Hordes faction, at least for the foreseeable future.
All right. Well, it's kind of sad we weren't able to get Polar Bear Cub in, but at least we were able to get your thoughts a little bit more about the lists and the game, and hopefully you do pretty well in the next round.
We'll see. I don't have high hopes for that, but fingers crossed.
For game 2, we had Taudark with his Khador this time versus War Machinist 2012 with his Trolls. So, Taudark, can you weigh in on your two lists and what you were thinking and your game plan going into that match?
Well, so I as you mentioned, I'm playing Khador for this scramble, and it was just I'm currently hunting for a War Machine faction to play against, and I managed to borrow Pokey's Khador. I set a list. I created two lists. One was just because I wanted to play Butcher 3, and the other one, which was my E-Sorcia, I actually picked up because there's a Convergence player in the Scramble that has a lot of recursion in his list, and there's a Cryx player in the Scramble, and yeah, Cryx. So that was kind of the decision behind Sorcia, and then the butcher list was really just I want to play butcher. You know, around the area we call him Uncle Butcher because he touches people in bad places. But really, it was just a situation where when I had the two lists and I got sat down across from War Machinist and his troll list, he had Calandra and Ruins of War, and I honestly thought he was going to drop Ruins of War against me. Just because Calandra has some game against Butcher, but does not have as much game, I feel, as Ruins of War.
So you were playing against Taudark here in the second game of the first round of our scramble. Could you chime in on your thoughts on why you chose those two lists, why you picked that particular pairing, and just your general thoughts on it?
Sure. My pairing for the scramble was Runes of War with Prime Doomshaper and Calandra's Elemental Evolution. So two theme lists. The Runes of War has for a while now been one of Trollbloods' stronger lists. I like the list because it uses the best pieces, I think, in Trolls with Janissa and Molg. Doomshaper has Purification, so it and his feat's really good against Fury casters. So I feel like the Runes of War list covers most of my Hordes matchups. Calandra's Elemental Evolutionism, the list that I played, is nice because it plays 11 points up, all the light beasts. So I'm playing 11 light war beasts. Each one is discounted 1 point, so it gives you an added free 11 points to your list. So I'm playing up against most people I play against at that point. It features 4 slag trolls, and I felt that against a War Machine army, with her Calandra's feat, that extra hitting power can really send it up over the edge. Seeing Taudark's list, I decided that if he played Sorcia, having the Winter Troll in the elemental list would help with the cold protection. And I liked the idea that I had a really ball-busting feat turn if he picked Butcher. And I felt like I could get an alpha on a lot of his army. I wasn't certain. That was the matchup I was the least certain about, and I definitely feared Butcher just coming in and laying waste to hordes of light war beasts.
When we went into the scenario, I was kind of looking at it, and none of his lists really seemed to have, or I'm sorry, his Calandra list didn't really seem to have a way of dealing with Armor 25 Demolishers. And I put 2 of those into the list because, I mean, they're just huge Iron Curtain for Butcher to sit behind, and they can part when he's ready to jump out. And that was really my game plan going into it. Destruction is so basically what I ended up doing with Destruction being a kill box scenario is I figured the Calandra's got to come to me. So Butcher's just going to advance up behind his Iron Curtain, and when all's said and done and she's close enough, he's just going to part the Iron Curtain and then just advance forward or charge forward, use Impending Doom to pull her closer, and then just start Weapon Master swinging on her. I ended up doing that for turn 1. I just kind of ran advance forward. I had Kazi on the left-hand side and Iron Fangs on the right-hand side. His deployment was relatively central, and I basically just advanced forward. He did some movements and shenanigans that put a Storm Troll into the zone, and a couple others prepared to react to whatever dealt with the Storm Troll. I felt like that was bait, but I didn't necessarily take it. I just moved up the curtain, put myself into the zone so that she couldn't have the Slag Trolls destroy my objective, and then just dominate the zone to get to 3 and then have a huge push on scenario. So I put the 2 Demolishers into the zone and put Butcher behind it. My thought was turn 3 she'll be close enough and I'll just spring the trap and Butcher will go to town. Either I'm going to kill a ton of beasts and really minimize her ability to do damage, or I'm going to kill her. However, War Machine's plan was that he was going to pop feet on his turn and used the Rune Bearer to push the Demolisher out of the way, one of the Demolishers out of the way, and then Calandra duty the other. In hindsight, I probably could have put some Kayazi or Iron Fangs next to the Demolishers to lock them in place. I've played Calandra before myself. I know she has Befuddle on her card. I've used it many times. I have no excuse for why I didn't remember at that specific time that she did. But I could have used Kayazis to kind of lock the Demolishers in place, because she can't spam Befuddle enough to clear out multiple Kayazi and the Demolishers to get to Butcher. But nonetheless, he moved the Demolishers out of the way, and then I felt sitting on full camp I was kind of okay.
Honestly, I kind of went for the assassination I went on because I was more curious than anything else. I wanted to see, could it be done? Butcher was on a full camp. Calandra has 2 great spells that she got a chance to use. She used Befuddle to move the wall of iron out of the way, and then allowed me to pretty much unload with my War Beasts on Butcher. The first guy to go, the Winter Troll, was able to crit stationary the Butcher, and at that point I figured it's time to go all in, because if Butcher's stationary I don't have to worry about boosting the hit. So that's where that assassination attempt came from.
When she popped feet and they all started shooting at me, I still felt really solid about it, because he was only doing onesie twosies. I mean, when you watch the video, basically he before the final beast goes in, he's corroded, frozen, on fire, and is down to like 7 hit points. And this was just a result of every single beast that was on the table taking the opportunity to either clear another beast off so it could shoot, or shoot itself, and every single beast was basically maxed out. By the end of the run, I think he had 24 Fury on the table, but it was the tail end beast, the Slag Troll, that he had lined up within 4 inches of his objective for a free charge, that he could basically just charge him in under the Pirate Troll, and did a huge slam.
If I had to do it all over again, we definitely played it out another round. If Butcher manages to live, Butcher can actually get to Calandra where she was, and I think the game would have been Daldark's. So it was a lot closer than it might look on video.
So one of the things you see a lot with Butcher lists especially is Epic Alexia, in order to have those spell-canceling effects. Do you think, looking back on different people's Butcher lists, I mean, you were saying this is your first time in Khador, really kind of jumping into the deep end almost, with sort of this tournament environment. Would you say, going back and redesigning lists now, you would look to add her in?
I think she is definitely a nice add, because not only does she provide you the recursion when the Kazi or the Iron Fangs die, but she also gives you a little bit of spell hate, which he doesn't have too terribly much of.
Yeah, so I know, like, when we played, I liked putting Crippling Grasp on him.
Yeah, and there's nothing Butcher hates more than not being able to charge.
There's nothing I love more than him not being able to charge.
So yeah, I definitely could see her going into the list. I definitely, she has potential with Butcher 3. I had contemplating about putting Iris 2 into the list, but I needed Iris 2 for my Sorcerer 2 list. So she never made it over there.
Can you talk a little bit about the Winter Troll? That's kind of he's been a very disliked troll for a while there, and now all of a sudden he's popping up in lists.
The Winter Troll is literally the last beast that I bought in Trollbloods. I actually had a Swamp Troll and everything else before I had a Winter Troll, and I don't think I ever would have gotten a Winter Troll had it not been for this particular list. Now that I've played him quite a few times, I think he's impressed me in every game, and it's kind of like you've discovered this little shiny thing stuck under a pile of poo somewhere, because every time he just comes out and polishes the turd and does a great job. He's stationary, 3 Warcasters now. He has his Animus. You throw his Animus on a Storm Troll, and you just watch War Machine players kind of look at it like, what do I do against that thing? Because if they attack it with a Warjack, they're disrupted. and if they go to attack the beast that's next to it, they're going to get stationary at the end of the turn. So he's been a joy. I like that guy every single time I put him on the field. I've also started playing him in practice games with Eborka, but that's another story.
I was also going to say, I think without the Winter Troll, Kalandra kind of auto loses to like Gorshade 3 and Sorcerer 1.
No, that's a great point. He adds another element to making your army have immunities to Gorshade 3, have immunities to Oceans 18 and Khador, and even Epic Sorcerer. So that's been another added benefit.
That's another thing I kind of wanted to ask you about, though, was Theme Forces and Trolls. Do you think that, given the way the faction is right now, that Theme Forces are kind of the way to go with them?
I think that anytime you can get a theme force in any faction that gives you the discounts and kind of helps skew the match, I think is definitely worth exploring. But I think theme forces in general, I think you'll see the good ones played, and I think you see a lot of the other ones that maybe aren't so good tested a lot. But really, I think it's only come down to, I've only played, I think, 2 theme forces in Menoth, and now 2 theme forces in Trolls. Although I would like to explore Family Reunion, it's just a matter of getting the models.
Yeah, I mean, from the Trolls perspective at least, there are, I mean, Ruins of War obviously is everywhere. You're starting to see Kalandra's tier list everywhere as well, but I don't think it's a general blanket statement where you can say all theme forces are good or all theme forces are a starting point. Several of the theme forces and Trolls are just absolute traps. They're going to set you up with this requirement for certain, selected models that you'll need to purchase to get, and then they'll never be used in another list. Or the benefits that you're getting are not necessarily as good as the benefits you can get by having the War Beast or the troops that you can't get in the theme. So I don't see it as a blanket statement. I do think that if you're struggling with a caster, that maybe looking at the theme force might give you some sort of guidance as to what Privateer Press might have been thinking at the time that they created the caster. But then some of the times I honestly feel like some of the theme forces were created from a lore standpoint, not a game mechanic standpoint.
I'm kind of a slut for theme forces, just in the sense that I am very lazy when it comes to list building, and it's great to have the company build a list for me. But I know there's been like a couple of theme forces out there that I've been very curious to see people try and play, like Kalandra's Forces theme force, where you get these advanced deploy Earthborn Dire Trolls and things like that. But it seems like, when you see the Trollbloods placing a lot, it's usually these theme forces, as Ruins of War. It was all kind of started with Family Reunion, really, a couple years back, and it's progressed since there.
Yeah, but all 3 of those theme forces, I think they excel because, like War Machine has said, they bring with them a points reduction. And I hear when you can play the game with more points than your opponent, you usually have a better time.
Well, for minions, it just balances my faction out.
Speaking of minions, about that game you had with them.
Yeah, let's get me and Iron Lick W up here.
I'm sorry, did you just say his form name was Iron Lick W?
Yeah. Like a lollipop.
Look at that disrespect. He renamed me after one game.
I was going to just call you ILW because that's really too many words to say already.
Come on, you have the vocabulary. You can do it. 3 words. No, 2 words in a letter.
I'm Cajun. You're lucky I can read. So, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your 2 lists and what your thoughts were going into this matchup?
Well, the 2 lists I decided to bring were an Asphyxious 3 list, or Asphyxious the Hellbringer, and as well as a Gorshade 3, or Gorshade Lord of Ruin list. But I just recently painted up the Gorshade 3 model, and so I was super excited about it. And although every single thought cell in my brain was telling me not to take it, I kind of overcame logic with the desire to play with the new shiny toy. So I took Gorshade 3 instead, just because I like the idea of freezing models and shooting them with the Crow's Cutthroats, which is the big combination I wanted to experiment with. then when we revealed this, you revealed that you're taking Arcadius. I'm like, okay, yeah, I probably should have taken a Asphyxious 3, but Gorshade 3 still had game. I felt that overall, I did have a couple of errors, especially with the deploying, because I know my objective was blocking me from charging, so I kind of wished I had switched my 2 cavalry units. That way the Soul Hunters would be on the left, and they'd be able to move through it with their graph. And then the Bane Riders would be able to move freely on the right side. But I guess throughout the course of our game, the biggest thing that was revealed to me was the lack of upkeep removal in that list. I think Cryx only has 2 ways of upkeep removal, which is with the Shadow Combine, which was in the other list, as well as the Satixis Blood Hag.
Nobody likes her.
She's amazing. She's part of the Satixis Blood Witch unit, which I was trying to find a list without them, because one thing I don't want to do is have like the same 2 or 3 models in every single list. So since Gorshade 3 does not have any kind of upkeep removal himself, I just kept getting hampered when you had thrown Crippling Grasp onto the Ghost Raiders, who are essential to the feat.
Yeah, it was kind of ironic that happened, because mostly I threw Crippling Grasp on them because they were there and they were in range, and nothing else was. That wasn't really a very planned out strategy on my part, and it kind of circles back to me being Cajun and not reading. I didn't realize that they couldn't run with that spell up, but I think that cancels out you not realizing that they're speed 7.
No, I knew it was speed 7 because if you look at the first turn, I run 14 inches. I think I just got so flustered once, like figured that I didn't have a way to remove it, that I kind of gave them like, move them to the back burner. Don't really think about them because they can't hit anything to save their life. With the Crippling Grasp, they can't damage anything to save their life. So all they're good for is being a nuisance.
Oh, they were. They were.
But despite the fact that my plan had gone awry, I had developed a new one, which would have given me a shot at winning if I had, done something called Order of Activations correctly.
Can you go into that a little bit in more detail? Because I think Order of Activations with Gorshade, his feet, and how all these things work with Mockery of Life really is a huge part of the caster.
Oh, without a doubt it is. I believe it was the 3rd turn I had just charged in. What happens was, I know you had left Arcadius on 1 Fury, so 1 transfer, but you had parked Orgorax in front of him along with Targ, I believe. No, along with one of your War Beasts.
Yeah, Warhog.
Warhog. And so what I surmised was, I'm just going to use Siphon Bolt to kill you. And I would do this by running up an Arc Node, which I did, and then zapping you 2 times while you were frozen. So I would have had a reasonably good chance to hit you the dice rolls, and then the damage dice would be what they'd be. I think it was dice -2, so I would have needed a little luck or a 3rd damage from somewhere else to successfully kill you. But
off of the top of my head, I believe he's armor 14.
Yeah,
and he's only got 15 health.
And Siphon Bolt is POW 12. But with Siphon Bolt, once it hits you, I get to take a Fury from you. And so since you only had 1 Fury, I would have taken it on the first Siphon Bolt, leaving you with nothing. So it would have been like 2 straight POW 12 damage rolls. Then hope I get lucky and kill you with something else. But I realized after I activated Gorshade, I couldn't draw a line of sight from the Arc Node yet, and then I was like kicking myself because the entire plan hinged on the Crows going first and wiping out the Gorax that was sitting in front of Arcadius. And then looking at the damage rolls as I looked through the film, I would have hit the Gorax enough times and I would have killed him. And then I think I would have had a chance to get at least 1 or 2 guys on Arcadius. So that plan kind of went to the trash can.
Isn't it
But-
amazing what you see on film afterwards?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes
But
it's terrifying.
one thing it did give me though was the insight to restructure the list. So now that I have some kind of upkeep removal, because I think what I am going to try in the next round is to get the Withershot Combine in that list. That way I can get rid of things like Crippling Grasp, Icy Grip, things that stop my stuff from running.
Seems broken.
But tell me, how was the winner's take on the game?
It was funny because looking at your two lists, I pretty much decided at the outset that I couldn't attrition it. So I was just planning to go for an assassination. And the way I was looking at doing that was taking Arcadius, putting Lightning Strike on 2 Roadhogs, pumping them up, trying to get Crippling Grasp on your caster, and then run them in, pop feet, and pray for the best. And that didn't happen at all because you're a giant jerk and you denied me the opportunity by keeping your caster way back and behind people and just generally playing a good game. Damn you. So I mean, the one thing that was key in our game is after your assassination run failed, I went for mine, and that stupid incorporeal model. And I just, I knew that when you charge through them and you take the free strike, you bounce back, but for some reason I blanked on it at that particular moment in time, and that could have been beautiful. I think Gorshay had 7 health left after the gun bore went into him. And
First one, yes.
yeah, that first gun bore was awesome. Props to him. And so then I had a Primal, Forced Evolution, Roadhog, and I'd actually gone with Arcadius to clear out, with Primal Shock, those 2 guys that were engaging the Roadhog, and I just snake eyes on the one guy who ended up stopping me. And I was killing myself. I went through all 5 stages of bargaining. You watch the video, you can see me trying to nudge the Roadhog. I'm like, no, he can get through. He can get through. And he couldn't. But ultimately, that was very painful because I could have just walked around them. I had no speed. I could have trampled. There were just so many other things I could do. And it was interesting on the forums, actually, a rules thing came up with that, where if my charge gets stopped like that, even though I didn't go the full 3 inches, I would still actually get the spray. So that's just something that came up. I always, for some reason, thought that I needed to get the full 3-inch charge or get the assault shot. But
You just have to not be in combat with the guy to get your assault shot.
yeah, that's what it turned out to be. So blonde moment right there as well.
You just have to be in combat with the target.
Not be in combat with the target.
Yeah,
Not be getting engaged with the target.
You can assault with a movement of 0 if you're not engaged with the target that you're assaulting.
Well,
But what
if
if you're engaged with something else?
yeah,
That's
I mean,
okay.
you can't assault if you're engaged already.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can. That's what I'm saying.
You cannot assault somebody who's already engaging you.
But you could assault, say you're tied up in the front line, and you still have line of sight to the guy behind them. This is what I just read on the forums. I mean, I could be wrong. Why I'm on here trying to spout like I know anything. But what I've been reading is that, so there's a guy 2 inches behind the guy that's engaging me. I can still assault him if I can legally see him.
Yeah, and it came up on our forum thread for all the battle reports. Someone actually linked it to the rules and found it. So I got shorted a spray there, but that's okay because that second gun bore, for whatever reason, was very motivated and came in and saved me. Saved my bacon, so to speak.
Ridiculous.
It was.
It was ridiculous. I think it was 2 15s in a row.
That's,
Oh look, Power 11, killing your Warcaster.
seems like it's fun dice. Yeah. No, we've come to expect that.
And then overall, as far as the list chicken goes, I ended up going with Arcadius just to deny the Blackbanes the ability to mulch my infantry and bring back more. Because neither one of my lists really had a lot of magical weapons.
Well, I don't have any additional Blackbanes, so if I attack and kill with a full unit, I get no more additional models until I buy more Blackbanes.
Well, that's not the way I think when I play you. I always figure you have something special and tricky in your bag.
So are we ready to pronounce pigs as a legitimate faction, Gaston?
No, I want more broken things.
I was gonna say let's not make overboastful statements.
Pigs are legit.
Minions are overpowered already.
Since when have pigs been overpowered? They have never won anything on this channel.
Minions just got 2 battle engines. 2.
Since they were released.
Yeah, they got 2 battle engines. People are only going crazy over one of them.
It's because they don't recognize the amazingness of the other quite yet.
To be honest, I actually
don't
think
place pigs.
that it is amazing. I'm gonna go out here. I'm gonna say that the Meat Thresher is much harder to use than the Sacro Vault, but I think ultimately it'll get a lot more damage output if you learn how to use it.
There it is. Mark the time. It's said first on Advanced Maneuvers by Gaston. The Meat Thresher will be better than the Sacrovault.
If you learn how to use it.
Oh, you had to bring learning into this.
It's better. That's what Gaston said.
No asterisks for me. I guess we'll move on to the final game of the first round, which would be Pokey and Fortinby. Alright, so we'll start with Pokey. Tell us about your lists, your strategies, your wisdom, your dice.
All right. My two lists were Naresh, which was a tier 4 list, and Makeda 3, the Exalted Court. And just like I said in the video, I thought the Makeda 3 list was going to be a little faster and allow me to get into, at least ways to get into the zone. Up against Cygnar is always tough because it's just so, I mean, there's just so much shooting.
So many POW 10s?
Yes. And they have the ability to push back, and once I saw he had the either one of the Haleys as his casters, I was like, okay, all I can hope for is to get in the zone and weather the POW 10s, as you call them. So I went with what I thought would be fast enough to get into the zone and lock him down, lock him into melee.
So I think your Makeda list is pretty interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about the strategy behind that, the thoughts that went into that?
Like a lot of people in the beginning, I was struggling with Makeda 3. Basically because it's like she doesn't do anything for the army, but she can be a beat stick all on her own. And her feat's very interesting, the way it works. So the thought was to try to use reach beasts, like Mullet Karn and the Savages, using them under her feet with the Bronzeback's Animus of Trainwreck. Because you get the 1-inch move with beatback, so you charge in 9 inches. With reach, you have 11 threat. As long as you hit the model, because the Savages have the ability, they have prescience built into them, so you can boost after the fact, and they just get to move. After they hit the model, so you're actually pushing them deeper into your opponent's lines. Or you can use that same tactic to basically mulch infantry. Most guys are going to keep their infantry, large groups of infantry somewhat close. It makes it a little bit easier to move from one to the next. And that's my thought on how I built the list anyways. Then the Basilisks are in there, the Kriya mainly for the defense, and the Drake, well, it does bad things to infantry, especially Cryx infantry. And so yeah, I mean the rest of it's just basically support pieces after that.
See, now I think that's fantastic because prescience isn't really an ability you see a lot of, and now you've built like this whole list around it.
Originally I tried to build a typical list for Makeda, which is like Gators and Annihilators and just a typical list, but it just every time I played it, it just didn't feel right. It just didn't seem like it had a good synergy to it. And I talking with the rest of the AM guys, it just seemed like this was a natural list, how it just worked well with itself. It seems like there's other people on the forums that have had similar lists, with different add-ins here or there, and this just happens to be one of the ones that I tend to like.
So why did you think to pair it with Naresh? That's another unusual caster. You got two kind of unusual ones there.
Well, here's the thing. Naresh, in the right circumstance, can really do some damage to armor, but you have to have the right the right setup for it.
And Rhinodons are the right setup?
Maybe. I don't know. I have a strange love for Rhinodon. Just go with that.
You call it strange. I call it almost unhealthy.
I also want to point out that you call it love. I call it an obsession.
Either
Obsession
way,
by Pokey, the new Rhinodon perfume.
it's better than Bronzeback mating season.
Oh, that was such a terrible day.
You've never been to the Bronzeback mating season, I can see.
It is always a horrible day when Bronzeback mating season hits.
It's funny to see people's reaction to you going for that Drake assassination. They don't know about you and those assassination dice.
I do have to admit that was it was a Hail Mary pass, and it was a super dice spike. With Temporal Barrier in that game, there's nothing I should not have won that game. There is no way I should have won that game. It was pure and simple dice.
Yeah, you took your dice, you looked at them in your hand, you said, I'm going to roll Pokey dice, and then you did.
Yeah, he wanted to make sure, he went out with class.
Yeah.
So, Fort, you took both Haleys. How do you plan on keeping friends?
When I get some, I'll let you know.
I'm going to say, with those lists, can he really have friends? Ever? I mean, that just seems like a horrible thing to do to people.
All I need is this chair.
Because all I need is this thermos. This thermos is all I need.
I was wondering if anybody would get that reference.
I think that's a little bit too old for me. What is the reference?
Steve Martin movie.
Steve Martin the Jerk.
I've seen the Three Amigos.
As soon as you reach puberty, you can start watching adult movies.
Unfortunately, I think there's only 2 people here that actually know that movie.
The
All
Jerk?
the rest of them are too young.
Sophisticated movie watchers, I can see.
I was going to say, if you're talking about The Jerk, no, you can up that number.
Yeah.
No, we're not talking about if you watched it with, like, your parents or something. We're talking, you actually remember the movie.
Was it your first date?
Mine? No.
Did you see it at the local drive-in?
25-cent movie day.
It was a $1.50 movie day, thank you.
Yeah, it's a War Machinist and
Done.
Tone. That's like some kind of Cajun solo porn movie, The Jerk.
Are you sure it wouldn't be the shrimp?
Well, it's the Shrimp Jerk, but, we shortened it to Le Jerk.
Oh, that sounds like a bad French stuff film.
Oh, God.
Anyway, back to the 2 Haleys.
Yeah,
I don't know why I
please.
picked them. I don't know. The E-Haley list was a list I made to play against Bradigus quite a while ago, really to test against my Bradigus. The P-Haley list was just because that's the models that I was able to make those 2 lists out of the stuff that I had painted up by War Machinists for the most part. But when I looked at Pokey's 2 lists, I thought either of my 2 lists would do okay against either of the lists, but I wanted to try P. Haley because I hadn't really played that list at all. When I started thinking about the matchup, I started thinking it was going to be a very good game for me. And then when he plopped down his Makeda 3 list, he had one thing in the list that can shoot. Imagine that. And no Gladiator. So I was thinking that he has no way to extend his beast movement because Temporal Barrier is going to shut down charging. Temporal Barrier also shuts down Enrage from the beast handlers. And he doesn't have Rush, 2 inches of movement from Rush. And he had a forest on his side of the board and like some kind of swamp or something. So I was fairly happy with the way things I thought were going to go. My plan was to get up close, staying just outside of any kind of range of his beast to get to my army, and just shoot him and backpedal, shoot him and backpedal, shoot him and backpedal, while the Tempest Blazers ran around one flank and got into the stuff that was hiding in the rear, shot them to pieces. That was the plan. And we all know what happens to plans when they have contact with the enemy. They don't survive very long. I measured the distance out, and knew that I needed to move that Drake or kill that Drake, and I had all the stuff on the list to do that. Deadeye off Haley, or Beast Lore off Tendrake. I spent Fury on Temporal Barrier and Upkeeping Arcane Shield, and I didn't cast Deadeye because I was going to do Beast Lore on the Gun Mages, and I forgot to do it, and I activated the Gun Mages and started shooting the Drake. That was the first shot I took, and we measured, and he was within the Kriya's Animus range, and so now I'm shooting at a defense 15 beasts, and my plan was to thunderbolt him back out of the way. Well, I can't really hit him accurately, so I let that go, and I told myself, well, you know, he needs a 17 or an 18 on 3 dice to kill Haley. That's after hitting a defense 16. I said, I'm fairly safe. So I switched over and took the Cyclops off the table, the Cyclops Savage off the table. If I had put Beast Lore on those Gun Mages, I would have been fairly sure of getting at least a couple of hits on the Drake, and probably had a good chance of getting the crit to knock him down, which would have helped out quite a bit. My decision to swap over and take out the Savage proved to be an unwise decision, one of many I've made in my life. Fortunately, this one wasn't a very important one. I was testing out a list that I'm not used to playing. I'm not a Cygnar player yet, but I'll get there. I tend to play Skorne and Circle more than anything else. But that's my thoughts.
The irony of you getting shut down by the Kriya's Animus is not lost on me. Trust me, I think it's great.
I don't think it's lost on anybody.
Don't make me bring back Bradicus.
So, can you talk a little bit about Dynamo with P. Haley and that little combination?
Well, I took the Dynamo just because it's a cool-looking model, and Haley's feet turned, everybody gets to shoot again, so it was a free shot by him. It didn't really have anything special going on other than that. The points worked out right, I guess. I could have put a Stormclad in there. I could have put almost anything, a Hunter or whatever. The more I think about it, I probably should have put something small like the little cheap arc node or something. Or actually, what I should have put in there was a Sentinel for Shield Guard. But and I could have put a Hunter on like the Gun Mage UA, and that might have been a better choice. But that's just for that particular matchup.
I'll let you guys know that when that match finished, the Ogre and Bakur was off the painting table within 24 hours.
Yeah, he got pushed up a little bit in priority, I'd have to say. I'm not sure it was related.
That seems like it makes sense and is completely related to that, yeah.
I'm so jealous that you can take the Bakur. I'd love to have a cheap shield guard like that.
I think the Sentinel's better, actually. The Sentinel costs 1 more point, and it's a lot more difficult to take off the table, and he gets to shoot stuff.
So, you were talking about how you're kind of new to P. Haley and everything. Based on this game and some of the games you've done previously, how have your lists and thoughts on her evolved?
I like the list that I played. I think it's got a lot. It's a really good list to play against Horde's armies, and that's what I built it for. It has 2 different ways to boost the hit rolls. The Deadeye is an additional die on the first shots, and Beast Lore is a boosted to hit roll. So you're looking at 4 dice on those Gun Mages. They're going to get brutals off, and they're going to get Thunderbolt knockdowns off, and they're going to hit those high defense beasts. That was my thought, at least. I really, this is my first focus army, first War Machine army, so I forget to allocate focus. I did that in that video on the first turn with the Dynamo, and it didn't cost me anything really, I don't think. But Dynamo may have been able to put 1 or 2 shots into the Basilisk. I don't know.
Okay.
The Drake.
It was a good game. I mean, well, good for me, but I mean, I was hoping it would have played out a little bit longer because I would have really liked to seen how long I could have survived.
Next time, don't shoot me.
Or, you can shoot him, just don't roll pokey dice.
If you want from now on, Pokey, I'll roll your dice for you.
I've seen how you roll some of your dice.
They're either really hot or really cold. There's no in between.
All right, which I think that takes us into the pairings for the second round.
Yep. So as a little upcoming teaser for people, we'll go ahead and give you an idea of what our second round pairings are looking like. We have minions on Convergence, Skorne on Trolls, Legion on Cryx, and the other two factions are playing each other.
That would be Cygnar on Khador.
I suppose so.
Actually, it's going to be E. Haley on Khador.
Haley on Khador? Look at that, the gauntlet's already been thrown.
Yeah, that seems friendly.
Not at
Friends got nothing to do with it.
Pray for my soul.
Alright, well, thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully this will, as we continue to get some practice with this will obviously improve and get a lot smoother. But we're very excited to get this up and running and get our first one out the door. And hopefully you all will come back for episode 2. Thank you very much.
I pray for your soul. It'll be a nice addition to my collection.
I guess we'll move on to the final game of the first round, which would be Pokey and Fortenby. Hello.
I think they went to sleep.
Yeah, it's like a senior citizen moment on both sides.
Well,
that got one of them to wake up.
It's way past their bedtime. It's 10 o'clock. Their bedtime was 5 hours ago.
That got the other one to wake up.
I gotta find my teeth.
I mean, it's not like we're, couple, almost an hour over the time limit that we set.
Well, I have to head out since I actually get up early in the morning.
Alright.
What time do you get up in the morning?
I'm just going early so you guys don't make fun of me.
What time do you get up? I'm getting up at
6.
4:30 tomorrow.
That seems horrible.
Well, I get up not that early at all.
That seems horrible. I think you should stop doing that.
I do it every day.
But he could stop if he wanted to. That's the best part.
No, I really can't. It's one of those stupid Pavlovian things. I don't know. Military melded into my brain.
So they're standing at the ends of your bed ringing a bell and you get up?
Yeah,
No,
something like that.
It's not so much that as they throw flashbangs in to wake your ass up.
That's
It's another
terrible.
wonderful day in the army. Boom! Oh.